Start with a number that barely sounds real. Our galaxy is about 100,000 light years wide, but only about 1,000 light years thick. Run those numbers and something strange falls out. In cosmic terms, the Milky Way is thinner than a sheet of paper. Shrink it all down to the size of a music CD, and all 400 billion stars would be flatter than the layer of ink printed on the surface. And we are the microscopic specks living inside that ink. Almost everything you have ever seen in the night sky lives on that one flat plane. The stars, the band of the Milky Way itself, the diagrams in every textbook, nearly all of it smeared across a single thin layer. And that raises a question that should nag at you. With the entire universe to explore, why does humanity hardly ever aim up? Every rocket and probe we have launched stays glued to that one flat track, as if a ceiling overhead kept us from crossing. So what would happen if you turned a telescope straight up, past the North Pole of our galaxy, away from the disk entirely? What is sitting in the ceiling of the Milky Way? The short version is an emptiness so total, it feels less like a place and more like a warning. Stick with me, because by the end you will understand why we are sealed inside this cosmic pancake and what is really waiting in the one direction we rarely look. To reach the ceiling, you first have to understand why the galaxy is flat at all. And it comes down to the same trick a pizza chef used to turn a lump of dough into a wide, thin disc. He spins it. The spin flings the edges outward, and the ball flattens into a circle in the air. The Milky Way did exactly that, just over more than 13 billion years. It started as a huge, roughly round cloud of gas that was already turning slowly. As gravity pulled it inward, the spin had to speed up, the way a skater whips around faster the moment she pulls her arms in. A fast spin throws material outward along the turning plane, but does nothing to hold it up and down. So gravity kept pressing the cloud flatter from the top and bottom, while the spin held it wide. Given enough time, a turning cloud nearly always settles into a thin spinning disk. Anything once floating above or below got pulled into the plane or flung away. That faint milky ribbon arching across a very dark sky, the one our galaxy is named after, is not a separate object in the sky. It is the disk itself, seen from within. We sit embedded in it, roughly 26,000 light years from the center, so looking along the plane means peering across the busiest stretch of our own galaxy. It's like standing in a forest and looking sideways, trees behind trees as far as you can see. The galaxy is stubbornly committed to staying flat. If the Milky Way ever stopped spinning, even for an instant, nothing would hold it open. Gravity would win immediately, and those hundreds of billions of stars would start falling toward the center in a slow-motion pileup. The spin is the only thing standing between us and that collapse. We're not parked on a stable platform. We're riding a spin that is holding back a fall. But not everything agreed to lie flat. Seen edge on from the side, the galaxy reveals a few hundred tight balls of stars hovering above and below the disk, like watchtowers posted outside a city wall. These are the globular clusters, dense swarms of hundreds of thousands of ancient stars, some of them older than the disk itself. They ride steep, plunging orbits that carry them far up out of the plane and back down again, survivors from the galaxy's chaotic youth that never got pressed flat. The closest big one, Omega Centauri, holds millions of stars, is bright enough to catch with your naked eye as a fuzzy little smudge. They're living proof that the flat disk is not the whole story, and that a few stubborn things still ride high above the crowd. And this is exactly where a lot of you stopped me in the comments last time, with a question sharper than it looks. If space is just empty, then flat compared to what? What decides up and down for a galaxy floating in the middle of nothing? It's a fair challenge, and it breaks the image of a galaxy spinning calmly in space. The Milky Way is not sitting still. The entire disk is hurtling through intergalactic space, pulled toward a distant, invisible mass we call the Great Attractor, at more than 1.3 million miles per hour. And it doesn't move flat like a plate sliding across a table. It moves more like a frisbee in flight, tilted, slicing across space at an angle. So the disk has a definite orientation, set by its own spin and its own path through the cosmos. The Milky Way has its own up and down after all, which means we can finally turn toward that up and ask what's waiting there. And what we find is not comforting. When you look up out of the disk toward the North Pole of the galaxy, you're aiming at a quiet patch of sky near a faint constellation called Coma Berenices. And the eerie thing is not what is there. It is what you do not have to look through to get there. Look along the disk toward the bright band of the Milky Way and your view is jammed with stars, shining gas, and thick lanes of dust. Gorgeous, but crowded, and you can't see far before something blocks the view. Now turn 90 degrees and gaze out through the flat face of the pancake instead. Nearly all of that clutter vanishes. There's barely any galaxy left in that direction. You're staring out into open intergalactic space with almost nothing between you and the rest of the universe. And out that way sits one of the most unsettling discoveries in astronomy. Far beyond our galaxy lies a region called the Boötes Void, though many people just call it the Great Nothing. It is a roughly round bubble of space close to 250 million light-years across, and it is very nearly empty. Astronomers first mapped it back in 1981 and could barely trust their own data. Going by how galaxies are normally scattered through the universe, that bubble should hold around 2,000 of them. When they counted, they found about 60. If our Milky Way happened to sit at its center, our night sky would look much the same, but we would not have realized other galaxies even existed until shockingly late in our history, because almost nothing would be close enough to see. To be clear, the void is not literally a lid bolted onto our galaxy. It lies far beyond us, often that broad upward stretch of the sky. But the point it makes is chilling. That view away from the plane is not just empty of our own stars. Part of it opens onto what may be the loneliest real estate in the known universe. Which leaves one last question, the big one from the comments. If space out there is basically empty, what is holding us flat? What keeps the spinning disk from slowly drifting apart? And the answer is something we cannot see. Our galaxy sits wrapped within a giant invisible sphere of dark matter, a halo of unknown material that outweighs every star, planet, and gas cloud in the Milky Way combined, and by an enormous margin. Nobody has ever seen it directly. We only know it is there from its pull. The stars far out of the galaxy's edges are orbiting much too fast for the visible matter alone to hold them in. So something extra has to be there, quietly gripping them. It's like feeling someone haul on a rope in a pitch-black room. You can't see the hands, but you can feel the force. That dark halo reaches far past the visible disk on all sides, and its gravity is a big part of what holds the entire galaxy together. So, the picture to hold is this. The bright flat wheel of stars is not the true shape of our galaxy. It's just the part that glows, a thin thread of light set inside something far bigger and completely dark. We're not living on a pancake at all. We're living deep within an invisible sphere, balanced on a lit-up plate at its center, like a single glowing disk floating within a globe of black glass we can never touch or see. And that's the ideal worth sitting with. We're sealed inside an architecture nobody designed and nobody can escape, riding a small blue planet that is itself just one speck on the plate. Gaze along the disk and you see the whole glittering city of stars laid out in front of you. Turn the other way, and you're staring into some of the deepest, loneliest nothing the human mind can hold. We live in a disk, and its ceiling opens onto the very edge of what we can understand. So the next time you tip your head back and stare up at the night sky, remember you're not gazing out into open space on every side. You are looking out through the thin face of a disk, locked inside an invisible cage, with a forbidden emptiness hanging right above your head. And if being trapped on a flat galactic plane gets under your skin, the same trap is hiding much closer to home, wrapped around our own star. There is a hidden story about what sits directly above and below the sun, and why we can travel nearly anywhere except straight up. Watch what's above and below the sun next. It's the same cage, one scale down. Stay insanely curious.